Hola, this is Enrique Morones of Buen Hombre, Magnificent Mujer, with another wonderful podcast produced by Sarabella and your host Enrique Morones of Gente, Unida. And we have another Buen Hombre that we're going to be speaking with today. He's a good friend and he's very well known to many of us in San Diego, not only in San Diego, but in other parts of the country and world because of his modesty, but especially because of his wonderful work with the Latino Film Festival and so much more. We have with us today my good friend, Ethan van Thillo. Ethan, how are you, my friend?
Really good. Thank you for the invite, and glad to participate in another one of interviews with you. I think I've been on probably a dozen of your shows, Enrique. I can't keep track where you are these days.
That's right. Yeah, well, I used to have a radio show, as you know, two radio shows. One was called On the Record with Enrique. That was in Spanish. I know you speak Spanish. And then another one was in English called, the first one. Now I forgot. That was On the Record, which was the second one. The first one was actually called Morones por la tarde. That's the one that was in Spanish.
Okay.
And then I had a podcast more recently, which was called Buen Hombre. And that was in English. And you were on all of those. So it's good to hear from you again. And one of the questions I often get, because your name, Ethan van Thillo, were you related to Ludwig van Beethoven? That's a question I often get. I don't know if that's true or not.
No, unfortunately not. But my father grew up in Belgium, so that's where the name comes from. He's from the Flemish area of Belgium and grew up in Antwerp. Unfortunately, I don't speak Flemish, but I grew up in a household here in Southern California, listening to Flemish from my grandparents, my dad, my uncles, and we visited Belgium as much as possible growing up. Just a wonderful country, so filled of art and music. And honestly, I think it's that love of art and music that has just kind of inspired me my whole life. I just continue down that same path, whether it's film, music, art, but I grew up in a family with a love of art and music. Thankfully, being my dad in Belgium and his father as well, love of classical music, and just love of great art. And then on my mom's side, my mom is from here in the United States. Her parents, grandparents, originally from Italy, but ended up in Memphis, Tennessee. But from my mom's side, it's been all about education. My mom's been was an educator for 30 plus years. And so I grew up with education, social justice, visiting families with her, trying to always do, help the community out, help those out. So that's really what I'm all about, is my dad's love of art, music, and then my mom's side of social justice and education. Thus, you have Ethan van Thillo.
Wow. So if it's Tuesday, it must be Belgium. I love Belgium. Thank you. Sarah has no idea what we're talking about, but she's too young. But as far as your background, which is that explains a lot of who you have become. The arts and the education and the social justice is always at the forefront of what you do. And where were you born in the Santa Cruz area or here in Southern California? Because I know you went to school in Santa Cruz.
Yes, Southern California. I think there was no hospital in San Clemente in 1970. So I was born in Southern California. There was no hospitals in San Clemente in 1970. So was born in Laguna Beach, the beautiful Laguna Beach, but grew up in a beach community around surfing. The whole environment near the beach, beautiful place. But that said, I can always to tell that I was kind of doing different things. This was again with the help of my mother. In terms of learning Spanish, hanging out with her students. So my best friend was Tony Bedoya, and we would travel to Uriangato, Guanajuato. I grew up playing violin, but then I started playing guitar, started playing like cumbia music, playing quinceañeras, weddings. And then starting, and for the first time, especially after I traveled to Mexico, starting to really understand the migrant experience, the immigrant experience, and the overt, racism that was taking place in San Clemente, and the issues and how the immigrant community, the Mexican community, was treated in San Clemente. I started really seeing that, and then I got accepted to UC Santa Cruz, and I think UC Santa Cruz kind of helped reaffirm kind of what I've been taught by my mother and parents my life, and what I have been seeing is really, connected to the Chicano studies there, the Latin American studies, and just, without knowing it, became a Latin American study major, but started taking all these wonderful classes where I learned about the Chicano experience and the history and Latin American activism. And it was there where I met a professor named Armando Valdez, and Armando Valdez was part of the Chicano movement. And he was the first person, I was taking a Chicano studies class from him, and he said, "Hey, who wants to organize a Chicano film festival as part of your final class project?" And I naively raised my hand and said, "Sure, this would be fantastic." And that's where I learned basically everything that I know today. I mean, he connected me with Chicano filmmakers, Isaac Artenstein, Paul Spinoza, Moctezuma Esparza, Jesus Trevino. He taught me the beginning steps of, how do you write a proposal to get funding for the different departments there at the university? How do you market a film? So we literally, drew our first poster. So marketing, fundraising, all that. That was the first. That was 1989 when I organized that my first Chicano film festival.
1989, and going from behind the orange curtain to coming over to a more liberal type of a setting, eventually going down to a UCSD. And it's very interesting how with previous guests that we've had, people always bring up the people that influenced them, how they changed their lives. Yeah. I was talking to Josefina Lopez, and she was talking about, Valdez, and how he inspired me, and Hugo Castro. Oh, yes, it was Rogelio Reyes. They talk about people that influenced them in their lives, and it kind of shifted what was going on in their lives, but they already had that deep in their hearts. It just hadn't come out because maybe they hadn't answered the call. There was something back there and they didn't know what it was. And I think that's so important for so many of us. And talking about what Orange County was and how it's dramatically changed. As you know, I've been in some of the films that you've shown, and some of them have dealt with the Minutemen. And I was just reading an old article I found from many, many years ago that was in Reader's Digest. And it said the person that's like the anti-Minuteman and so on and so forth. They were talking about the work that I was doing. And it was talking specifically about two Orange County people, Jim Gilchrist and Chris Simcox, which were the founders of this racist group called the Minutemen, which thank God they were shut down. But now we have a situation much worse. But that's another story. So you're at Santa Cruz and you're influenced by Armando Valdez, and you eventually work your way down to UCSD, was it, where you were also very active here in San Diego, and you eventually moved to San Diego?
Yeah, so my partner, of 30 years, she came down here to get her teacher's credential at UCSD. I was then working part-time. We actually both got jobs working for the County Office of Education with the Migrant Education Program. So visiting migrant families in the summer, doing tutoring, visiting home around San Juan Capistrano, even down to San Diego County, here in San Diego County. But so, yeah, I started doing that kind of work in terms of just getting paid, but also working with the community. But then, yeah, I basically said to myself, looking around in the area, I said, well, I know how to organize a Latino Chicano film festival, and I don't see, a film festival taking place with, a huge population. When you look at both sides of the border, Tijuana and San Diego, boy, there's just a huge population that, I know would want to see images of themselves and see movies about the Latino or Chicano experiences. Again, I knew how to get money from, and funding from UCSD or the UC system. So from my experience at Santa Cruz. So then, I immediately connected with Adolfo Guzman and Jean Chavira, who were the editors of the Voz Fronteriza at the time at UCSD. and they were the student organization that kind of they were my fiscal sponsor. And so via the Voz Fronteriza, we were then able to get funding from the Chicano Studies Department, the History Department, the Women's Studies Department. And so we pieced together a festival. And then I did the same thing by connecting with ASB at the San Diego State University. And so we started creating all these partnerships, the State University, UCSD, UABC in Tijuana. And then at some point too, around that same time, Jean Chavira, Adolfo Guzman Lopez introduced me to Eloisa de Leon at the Centro Cultural de la Raza. And the Centro also became a partner of the film festival. So early on, it was really, 1994 was the first film festival. We call it Cine Estudiantil. It was the only Chicano student film festival of its kind. We screened U.S. Latino student work, but also student work from Mexico City and Latin America. Maybe screened 20 films max, maybe 400 students came. We used to kind of force all the students and participants to sit in the classrooms and have a long discussion about the films afterwards. But those were the early years, and I still connect to some of those students. For example, the filmmaker Alex Rivera, his first student film festival, he's a New York filmmaker. His first film was in my 1994 film festival. Now he's making films at Sundance, The Infiltrators, that documentary that we were just going to screen this year. So it's neat to see the history. Carlos Carrera, Carlos Cuarón, even famous Mexican filmmakers that started in 1994. And we used to screen their student films. So wonderful. That was the start of the Cine Estudiantil, the Latino Film Festival, was 94, and in partnership with all these. So you talk about mentors, so wonderful mentors, but then also just the importance of partnerships and just connecting with people and getting people together. And that's what's made the festival so exciting, is that it's not about one organization, it's about all these community organizations always getting together and feeling a sense of ownership of the festival.
That is so true, and not only as far as organizations, but realizing that all of these movements is a movement. It's a bunch of people. It's not just one person. And I think a lot of times people lose sight of that. And we've had such legendary filmmakers, like you mentioned, Paul Espinosa and other people that are still very, very active. Now, you mentioned, so when you did this first film festival after coming down from Santa Cruz, your first film festival in San Diego, was that at UCSD?
Well, it was everywhere. Sorry, it was kind of a little. We're at UCSD, but then we actually went to Mesa College. There was a Chicano, or it is a Chicano Studies Department there. Then we went to San Diego State University, and then we also went to UABC in Tijuana. So I connected with Harco Amezcua, with a young artist down there in Tijuana, who connected me with UABC and the Instituto Cultural de Baja California. So we screened at La Casa de Cultura. So it was a binational festival, just a ragtag group of young volunteers, and we were carrying around these 16 millimeter prints and projectors around, and the famous stories. But we were at the Casa de Cultura with Carlos Avila, who's a great filmmaker out of LA. We were the same night we had screened his film, but we were also screening another film, and it was kind of an experimental film. And we had to make our own projection screen. So the night before, painted a screen, made this screen at the Casa de Cultura Tijuana, and then we borrowed this projector from UABC. Everything's working fine, but we're looking at the screen and we're like, oh my gosh, this is a very experimental film that we're looking at here. But of course, it was burning. It was the print was actually on flames. Again, it's always, the interesting thing about that is that this festival, the struggle, the arts organization that we created has always been a struggle. It's this type of work you do because of passion, and never been easy, but so many different wonderful experiences. And seeing Carlos Avila, a young Chicano from LA, talk about his Chicano film to the Tijuana audiences there, again, that's what makes it all worth it. And now, that was 94. So now we've had thousands of those interactions between filmmakers, audience members, and, so many different people have experienced the festival.
And you were way before your time when you were working across the border with UABC, and you said about that film. So you've always had literally hot films, even since the beginning, where the screen was actually burning up. That 3D effect was burning up. Yeah, the 3D effect was unbelievable. How you would be such a visionary that you would make it look like an accident, but actually you had planned that. No, I'm just kidding. But how about you talked about migrant education, which has been a dear part of my life, with working with people involved in migrant education. I don't know if you ever came across a dear friend of mine, Maria Chavez, who was very active with migrant education.
Of course. We worked with her. I mean, so after I started the festival in 94, the festival we started doing like year-round programming, working at libraries. And the festival itself grew. So in 1999, then we created the nonprofit organization called Media Arts Center San Diego. And that nonprofit's the umbrella to run the San Diego Latino Film Festival and the various Latino film programming. But then also 1999, the first program that we created was called the Teen Producers Project. And the Teen Producers Project is an important work that we've been doing now for over 20 years, where we get cameras and computers and software in the hands of youth that usually don't have the opportunity to do these types of programs, teach them how to do pre-production, production, and post-production, teach them how to tell their stories, tell stories about their community, about important issues in their community. And so 1999, the County Office of Education and Migrant Education, worked with them before. So they were my first partner, and they were the ones that really, they contract us and filmmakers. So we were able to hire young makers, and we took these filmmakers around county, actually up to Orange County, all the way down to San Isidro, wherever the migration program was. And we would take in that time, it was small mini DV cameras and laptops, and we were in 9 sites at once, basically, during a week, and we would work with 12 plus migrant education students a day. Again, teach them. It was 12-week sessions, and at the end of each session, there was family screenings, community screenings, and they would produce these wonderful videos. And again, those are still some of the favorite videos that I continue to see from our Teen Producers project because they were about the migrant experience. They're about growing up in San Isidro or in Fallbrook and the issues that they were looking at. We did a whole series of Latino activism in Escondido called Escondido. So, it was those early videos and the power of seeing one's voice. Again, it's not about having fancy, equipment and production. It's just about the rawness and the importance of getting the youth and community members to tell their story. And also it's a sense of pride too, seeing. So if you imagine you're in high school in Escondido or wherever you may be, you're being forced to speak English, and so we would allow the students to speak whatever language they want to. We would allow the students to tell their story, and so there's a sense of pride, and not just doing the rote kind of like I'm taking these tests or just trying to get through high school. It's a sense of pride and for the youth to participate. And so the Maria Chavez County Office of Education Migrant Education Program was very important to the beginning of our education programs called the Teen Producers Project.
And those are such wonderful programs, both the Media Arts Center that you started and the Teen Producers Project. How do people get involved in that? Because you might remember my nephew actually interned with you at another project that I want to talk a little bit about, the Digital Gym. And how can people find out more about that? Because some people that are listening, incredibly, might be hearing about these programs for the first time. So, and you talk about the funding, which is so important to all our work. So how can people get involved in these programs, whether it's the Media Arts Center, the Teen Producers, the Digital Gym, and how can they support it? Is there like websites or people can volunteer, donate? How can people get involved?
Yeah, definitely check out the main film festival website, sdlatinofilm.com, sdlatinofilm.com. You can check out when the next events are, when the next festival is, how to submit your work. It's called Call for Entries. Every year there's a call for entries. Also, there's a volunteer button. You can get involved as a volunteer. And then the MediaArtsCenter.org is the next website, MediaArtsCenter.org. That's the website. Again, that's the umbrella for the film festival, but there's information on the film festival. There's information on our Asian programs, the Teen Producers Project. We also have youth media and tech camps for young kids. We also have a video production services, or what I call community production, where we work with the community and tell stories. And so if you're a young filmmaker that's listening and want to produce content, you can get involved and help us actually produce content. So we have a big program called Speak City Heights, where we work with community members and tell stories about community organizations in the City Heights area. So there's two main departments: there's education, exhibition, and production. And so various ways to get involved, either as participants, youth, volunteers, and then of course in this time of crisis at this moment, donations. If you just want to donate and support what we're doing, everything is very helpful and needed at this important time.
Absolutely. And as you know, you've invited me several times to the Latino Film Festival, whether it's to introduce a film or it's a film that we're involved in or that we're in. You may have heard the podcast not too long ago with our friend Josefina Lopez, and she was talking about a little bit about Detained in the Desert, which was one of the films that featured some of our work. But it's not just local type of issues. This past year, you had at the Latino Film Festival the shorts, and I remember a very dear friend of mine, somebody that worked with me as a volunteer she's done it. As a matter of fact, she was heading over here, but with the virus, wasn't able to make it. She had a short, and I remember when she told me she was coming all the way from Holland. She goes, "Yeah, I'm going to be in this contest for the best short or something like that." So I thought the short was going to be like 20 minutes or something like that, because she was flying all the way from Holland with her mom. And I go, "Yeah, how long is the short?" And she goes, 2 minutes. And I go, "You're flying all the way from Holland to the United States to see if your film is selected, and it's 2 minutes?" I go, "That's really dedication. That shows you how fired up these young people get about that." And of course, I'm talking about Julie, whose film actually won the short contest. And you could see how excited she was, and the other people that have their films, whether it's the 2 minute short or the story about themselves, and if it's a person that doesn't speak English and they're speaking in Spanish, and the pride in the family seeing their loved ones work on the screen. That is so powerful. It's just hard to explain how powerful that is. But you've lived it, because you've seen all of these. You've seen all of these stories and the impression it makes on them to continue. We were talking a little bit about role models, whether you're at Mesa and there's Rita Sanchez, or at San Diego State and all this, various people. But how about the empowerment that these young people feel after their film is made? They see it on the screen, whether they win the award or not, just the fact that they've done something that's being recognized. How about that power?
Yeah, and then there's also the power of seeing oneself on the screen for the first time, and maybe in a positive or more accurate light. So again, if you remember, if you just grow up your whole life, all you see is like negative images of yourselves or negative images of your community. It's just like, you turn on Fox News, right? It's just, oh, this murder, this fear, it's like your whole life you've seen that. So the festival like strives to like break that down and say, look at all these positive and accurate images. And so, in addition to producing them, we also have something called Tu Cine, which is an annual it's a free student outreach screenings during the film festivals in the morning. So like, close to 2,000 middle schoolers and high schoolers will come with their teachers to see movies. Again, the importance to, see oneself on the screen and see, oh my gosh, I can be a doctor, I can be a lawyer, I can, be an artist, so that's, to me, what the festival's been really important for too, is the young kids seeing themselves on the screen. And yeah, I hope they produce their own content too, but at minimum, just trying to change the negative and combat the negative stereotypes that we're constantly being bombarded with. And yes, I think things have definitely improved in terms of the Latino Hollywood, and the images, more actors and directors in front of the camera, more directors behind the camera. That said, there's we're so far away from what we really need to be, if you compare with the percentage of Latinos population in the United States.
Yes, we have a long ways to go, and also, but it's affected other communities. Just the other day, I was talking to Leanne Kim, whom you know, and the fact that they've started their, the Asian Film Festival or the Jewish or the gay. I kind of think of you sometimes, the story, sort of like Comic-Con, where they started in the garage or the basement of a little hotel or something, and that was just so huge. The Latino Film Festival has multiplied with other film festivals from other communities, using your role model to also talk about their communities, which are equally important.
Yeah. I mean, Asian Film Festival is a great example of what's happened here in San Diego. The San Diego Film Festival scene is incredible now, right? It's the Jewish Film Festival, the African American Film Festival, gay and lesbian film festival. I mean, there's just so much opportunity to see great independent and foreign films, and then also celebrate one's community, one's culture, one's identity, one's gender, which is really important because, again, the film festival is much more than just this kind of entertainment. Oh, I'm going to see this telenovela. Like, for many people, the film festival is almost like, you come home once a year. It's about family, and so I think for many people that we live on the border, there's a lot of Mexican films that we were seeing, but imagine if you're from Argentina, from Chile, Peru, Brazil, and you don't get the chance to see and hear your dialect or hear your stories on screen. So it's almost this wonderful opportunity to come out and see friends and family every year and see one's identity, one's culture, and on the big screen. So it's much more than just the entertainment, event.
It is much more. And then people like my mom, who's in her 90s, and when I've taken her or somebody else has taken her to the film festival, one of the many wonderful things is when they see these old stars from the telenovelas or from the movies, I have no idea who that person is, but I realize it's somebody that's well known by the reaction of people from that age group or from that community, like maybe they're from Brazil or from Peru or et cetera. And that's such a wonderful reaction that you see, because I'll be standing next to the person just by chance, and I have no idea who they are. But then all of a sudden you'll see a crowd coming because they want to take a picture with that person or get their autograph. You must have a lot of examples of times that you've been, because you're always so low key about it. But you might well be walking along with Diego Luna or somebody along those lines that is a better known star. And how you kind of control the crowd or how you interact with them, because I'm sure there's a lot of people trying to find out where they're staying or wanting a picture when it's the wrong moment. How do you deal with that?
Well, first of all, it's the festival staff, all the festival staff every year that works tirelessly. Number one is you got to find the films, and then you got to convince all the famous actors and filmmakers to attend, and hopefully it fits in their schedule. And just remember, we're a small nonprofit. We're not paying these people, Kate del Castillo or Carlos, Alfonso Cuarón to attend the festival. It's they're also doing this attendance of their heart, or hope it fits a promotion of a specific film, and so you got to fit all this between all their schedules and stuff like that. So a team of volunteers and independent contractor staff that work literally 3 months plus, just to try to get all this together. And then yes, once they come into town, you want them to have a good time. So who's driving them here, who's driving them there, how do they get into the airport, how do they get make sure they have a nice hotel. Lots of them want to go shopping, so make sure they get some shopping in, or they want to go to the beach, Coronado, La Jolla. So you try to give them a wonderful experience. At the festival, you want to make sure they introduce the movie, have a good Q&A, and have a good experience. And then, you balance the needs of the attendees who want to take photos and all that kind of stuff. And again, mostly it's been very easy over the years in general. But yeah, when you have someone like Kate del Castillo come in and people running after her, then you have security issues, and you bring him in through the back of the space, or like Jaime Camille. There's some talent that you kind of have to kind of sneak them in. But in general, everyone has been wonderful. And for me, again, having done it for 27 years, I think, you know, again, what I guess I regret a little bit is I've been so busy working over the years that I miss things too. You know, I haven't even met everybody that's attended the film festival because I might be somewhere else running around or something like that. So it's a really interesting experience to look back and to see all these amazing people that have come and those that I've met, but maybe those I haven't met. And the other challenge for me as an organization is how do you keep connections with them? Because especially once they get famous, it's like, oh, it's impossible to get them back and stuff like that. So, you know, to try to get Diego Luna or Gael Garcia back, it's just, it's been impossible. We've been trying for years, you know, ever since they came a long time ago.
Well, I have a slight relationship with some of those people, and they all speak very highly of you and the great work that you've done. And like you said, the staff. Tell me a little bit about Moises. He is unbelievable. What he does there, and when I see you running around, he's also running around like a lot of the staff. Tell me a little bit about him because we want to learn more about him and talk to him in the future.
Yeah. Moises Esparza is just a great example of, gosh, so many people that I've had the privilege to work with over the years. Again, I can't do this by themselves. It's a team effort. And so over the years, we've just been so fortunate to have these dedicated individuals. And so Moises Esparza is currently our main curator. He curates all the movies. Special titles, I think, is exhibition manager. But he started about 6-7 years ago as an intern. So like many those that continue to work with us or that have worked with us in the past, they start as interns or volunteers. Film majors or interested in film or interested in the Latino community. In his case, he's a film major and getting his master's at the San Diego State University. And yeah, he's one of those individuals that you just immediately see the passion. Oh my gosh, and so intelligent, and his ability to curate movies and his writing of all the synopses. And so again, what you see as in the public, so there's about 175 plus movies that are in the festival catalog. Then on top of that, he curates 15 to 20 movies a month at the Digital Gym Cinema. So you're talking 300, 400 films that are being curated by him on an annual basis. But those are the ones that you just see in the public. You don't know what he's watching at home at all times of night, just to try to view these films. So there's close to 800 films a year that are just screeners that, he's watching and to try to decide what to screen or not to screen. And, maybe some people think it's simple. Oh, we're just going to pick whatever is popular, whatever film. But no, there's a lot of thought and process that goes into creating the experience. It's like going into a museum which has been curated. The film festival has been curated, and then there's certain themes and issues that he's looking at. There's certain styles of films that he's looking at, and same thing with the Digital Gym Cinema too. We're trying to get a diverse, example of international independent cinema. So it's a lot more than just like picking whatever's popular or whatever people get us. So. And then, having someone like Moises Esparza, who's just so dedicated, so committed, and especially during this, crazy time of crisis that we're currently living in. But the amazing thing about Moises and other staff too is the flexibility. And I myself kind of been for 27 years. Anyone running an arts organization or running a small nonprofit, I think, and Moises exemplifies this. You just have to be innovative. You have to be flexible. You have to be very quick. So we can do things. I create an event on a dime and constantly looking at new ways to reach people. And then also you just need to work hard, and then also you need to commit. So I think Moises is one of those individuals too, is that, just like, me and other staff, once you say you're going to do something, you do it and you make sure you do it.
You do have an excellent team, and you were talking about create. How about this unusual situation that we're living in right now, where you had the film festival all ready to go, people were excited, you had the great parties, because you also have these great parties, receptions. I remember last year, I went to a reception for Julie's film, and it was in one of the stores there in the shopping center, and so on and so forth. So all of those things take a lot of work. So you have everything ready, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, because nobody expected this, we have the situation we're living in. So what's that been like? I know it's been crazy, but so you have to tell all these people, don't come. Everything was prepared. What's been happening?
Yeah, that was probably the hardest email I've ever sent in my, history of this nonprofit. Because again, I just said the word commitment. I for 27 years have committed to bring the film festival to the San Diego, Baja California region. And again, that's a commitment that's, it's just like this crazy process, almost like giving birth every year. The amount of work that it takes, literally the blood, the sweat, the tears, there's lots of crying every year. There's a lot of work that it takes to put on this festival. So people don't see that, the 3 to 4, 6 months of work just to get to that process. And so you do all that work. And then, March 12th, after the governor announced the new rules about public gathering, I had to send out that email basically to staff and, the board members first canceling or postponing the event. And then we had to send it out to the general audience as well. Yeah, that was probably the hardest email that I've ever sent. Again, because when you think about all the work and then you think about all the filmmakers that have participated, the people that bought tickets to attend, the people that took off work, because people take off work and it's their vacation. Filmmakers and actors who have already bought their airline tickets that are coming here. So it's just monumental in the scope and how it's just in the past month, our whole worlds have been turned upside down. And financially for a small nonprofit, it's devastating. I can't say anything else. You can't kind of hide the fact that it's not devastating because every year you take a gamble in terms of organizing an event. You are already paying film rentals, you're already renting movie theaters, you're already buying airline tickets, hotel tickets. You have to buy all that stuff in advance, and you don't get the money until ticket sales come in. And so the ticket sales don't come in until, the box office is open. So, usually, gosh, we put $150,000 on credit cards, whatever lines of credits to get the festival running. And then during the 11-day festival, you make that back with the ticket sales. But of course, we didn't have the 11-day festival. So now I'm stuck with $150,000 debt, credit cards. And then on top of that, so the staff is resilient, right? So okay, we have to postpone the festival. We'll have it in the fall. So, we've already talked about having it in the fall. But then we, immediately turn our, minds to our other program. Okay, well, let's keep our movie theater going, the Digital Gym Cinema, or let's keep our, we got our spring youth and tech camps also. But of course, in literally 1 week or 2 weeks, all that was also canceled. So, in the course of a 2-week period, the whole organization's, structure and programming was just kind of just flattened, canceled. So there's the movie theaters closed, the film festivals postponed, the education programs are stopped. And so, you're just looking at it yourself and everyone just like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do now? And so that's kind of where we're at right now is basically regrouping as everyone else is, right? Everyone else is in the same boat. This is just a monumental crisis that it's just affecting everyone around us. But so now we're just regrouping as good arts organizations and artists do, innovative, flexible, and seeing what the next steps are.
It's encouraging to know that you're planning to do it in the fall because it is such a big event for so many of us, and it opens up the doors for other organizations. I remember one time I was at the film festival, at your film festival, with a dear friend of mine, rest in peace, Gladys Jones, who was the founder of the House of Peru. We were watching a Peruvian film, which was really hilarious, and how that would help the House of Peru, like a fundraiser for the House of Peru. As you know, I'm the founder of the House of Mexico, and you've also done things for us where we would have a Mexican film, and we'd have a reception to raise some money, and we'd all go as a group to see the film. And we don't want to miss those opportunities, but more importantly, the fact that there's so many people not only enjoying the festival, but that depend on the festival, like Moises and others that work there. Some are volunteers, some are paid staff. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about some of the things that you've been involved with, like, for example, the National Endowment for the Arts or the San Diego Commission for the Arts and Culture, because I understand that San Diego is surprisingly like recognized as one of the top arts. I don't know if it's through the funding or recognized nationally as a leader in some of this work in the arts and so forth. Well, you would think that some of the leaders would be New York and San Francisco and so forth, and they are leaders in so many aspects.
Yeah.
But San Diego's position nationally, as far as when it comes to the arts, as far as receiving funds, overall, and also the exposure that it gets as an arts community. Because when people think of the arts, usually, and I know very little about this type of stuff, but if I think about the arts, I usually think about LA, San Francisco, New York, and that's about it. But San Diego's right up there. San Diego's right up there, and I think a lot of times people don't realize that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we always think about LA and New York or San Francisco because that's where a lot of funding is, that's the one thing we don't necessarily have in terms of these larger, 500, companies that are just tons of money's going into these areas. So definitely there's more, I would say overall, more funding in those core areas. But that said, I think the San Diego arts community is just so strong and so resilient. For example, during this current crisis, there's a coalition of youth arts organizations called the Creative Youth Development, which has just been amazing. It's helped funded by this smaller foundation called the Claire Rose Foundation here in the San Diego area. But it's a coalition that gets together now almost on a weekly basis and talks about like, how can we continue to provide arts education programming to youth, and especially youth that are underserved? And this is just not just in film, but arts, dance, music, you name it. There's so many wonderful organizations out there, like Aja Project that does photography, or the Dave Harps Foundation that does music production with kids. So yeah, there's a strong coalition that's working together to keep the youth arts education programs going during this time of crisis, and in general too. Always trying to better oneself and better our programming, make it more youth-centered, and make it more impactful for the youth and really help these kids. And then also you have the Commission for the Arts and Culture here, yes, which has always been very, it's been a great resource for the organization. We receive money, it's called an organizational support program, which is a very rare kind of source of money where, it helps with the just overall running of the organization, the nonprofit. So many funders like to, fund like education programs or specific programs, which I understand. But in general, lots of nonprofits and arts nonprofits, they just need help with like, paying the rent or paying staff and stuff like that. So a lot of these funders, they like to, fund the nice arts education program and, working with the kids, but they don't understand, well, it also takes, administrative staff and facility and rentals and, your leases and all this kind of stuff just to kind of continue. So the Commission for Arts and Culture support is really important. And then the other big funding source is the California Arts Council. So thankfully we live in California, which has also been a huge support. And thankfully that budget continued to rise, because there was a period there in the 90s where it was almost decimated, the California Arts Council. So now it's really strong, and we receive support to go into schools from the California Arts Council. We receive support to work with the juvenile court school systems. We receive support for the film festival to do the two Cine field trips that I mentioned earlier. So again, thankfully, California and City of San Diego have support for the arts. That says, I hate to say this and not to be a downer, but this crisis is going to be a challenge to continue. We're already seeing cities, now furloughing or laying off staff. So people are already talking about the less tax income coming in. And so that's going to affect the arts community negatively, unfortunately. So I've been talking about this recently, this whole crisis. So if all of our arts organizations, whether it's, the symphony or the theater, La Jolla Playhouse or whatever, so number one, you lose your earned income, you can't sell tickets. But on top of that, if you start losing like city support or state support, then we're really going to be looking at some really harsh times for the arts community. And again, I want to stress to everybody that now's the time more than ever to support the arts and support filmmakers, support artists, support arts organizations. I mean, people always kind of talk about what's essential, and we know there's core things in life. We got to have housing and food and stuff like that. But you can't tell me the arts are not essential, because that's all we're doing every day. We're watching movies, we're listening to music, and all this was created by arts. And so we constantly are getting this, feedback, oh, the arts are not important, the arts are not important, but they really are. And they are, our government, our city officials, state officials, everyone needs to know that no matter what, we have to continue funding arts and arts organizations and arts programs, because that's the soul and essence of who we are as human beings. And so yeah, it's going to be some interesting times coming down the pipeline, but I encourage everyone to still fight for arts programs, arts organizations, and advocate for the arts.
Absolutely. Like you were talking about essentials, like food fuels our body, but the arts fuel our soul. And it's so important that we do support the arts and continue to support the arts. And, since I retired from Border Angels in November, and now with Gente, Unida, we were working on a program with kids that we've been doing for a long, long time. And we, like you, will continue to do that, but now we're doing it virtually. So we're going to be teaching music and arts and so forth virtually with the migrant children in Tijuana. And I know that you were working on a virtual program or became a virtual program, and about something very, very important. Like this year, one of the biggest things in all of our lives is making sure that people vote. We got to make sure that people vote in November. But the other thing that we got to make sure that people do, and you're working on this, is the census. How is that project going about making sure people participate in the census?
Yeah, so connected to our work I mentioned earlier, we do a lot of community production, and the whole point is to get stories from different neighborhoods and communities out there. And so there's a program that we've been working on. It's called Speak City Heights, and so it's focusing on City Heights. And in this case, working with other organizations like Mid-City Can or Naleo that already work with the community members in City Heights area and help to get the message out. So we already produced a video about the census. We worked with Blanca Romero from Naleo. And of course, the video right now is originally we were going to do community screenings and have this dialogue and booths and stuff like that, but now it's all virtual. So it's on social media, it's on speakcityheights.org, and you can check it out. It's a video about the importance of the census, and we're going to continue doing that work. Promoting the census in different languages. We work a lot with the Vietnamese community in City Heights area, and the Somali community, so we'll work on getting in different languages, producing content. And additionally, with the census work in City Heights, we're also trying to promote the small businesses and the community organizations there. So we want to keep the small businesses alive too. So you're going to be seeing some more video and some social media content from us, trying to promote what these wonderful organizations are doing. For example, the Little Saigon Foundation, what they're doing to, number one, a lot of local stores are actually producing masks now, sewing masks and getting those masks out for community members and getting them to small businesses. But then also, how do we keep these small businesses alive by takeout or just promoting their offerings and stuff like that. So you'll see us do that. So that's a virtual production work where we're doing. In terms of the film programming, luckily a lot of these films already were online. The distributors had the platform. So our Digital Gym Cinema was immediately able to kind of transfer over. We call it DGC at home. DGC at home is a virtual movie theater option. Again, I'm not sure this is a long-term option, but this is definitely what we got going right now. So every week we're still releasing 2 to 3 films, but now we're releasing 2 to 3 films virtually with Kino and Magnolia Pictures and Film Movement, different distributors. And what they provided us is with our very specific URLs, links that go specifically to supporting our nonprofit. So you can watch this film online from your home on TV or on a laptop or smart device, but then that percentage of that, it's like $12 to see a movie, a 5-day rental. That percentage goes back to supporting our specific art house movie, the Digital Gym Cinema. So our movies are online. Our community production is starting to go online. Our education programs, our Saturday Teen Producers Project class, that's online as well. So the kids meet via Zoom. We've given them access to Adobe Premiere to edit from their homes. And so they're starting to continue to produce their content. So that's working on Saturdays. However, I see the biggest challenge, and this is the challenge that is going to be a challenge for everybody in terms of school districts as well, is like, how do we reach those, underserved and hard to reach, right? So how do we continue our youth education programs at the juvenile court school systems or affordable housing complexes for those students that don't have access to computers or might not even have internet? And then how do we change our software and our programming to adjust to the skills and or technology that the families and kids have? And so, we're used to getting kids to our programs and using our Apple computers and laptops and different software, or we take our computers and softwares there. So, but now if a young student, hopefully they get a Chromebook, maybe, a young Hoover High School student gets a Chromebook that they can take home. First of all, they got to hopefully have access to a Chromebook. Then they have to have access to internet. And then, so what can we do via that Chromebook and the internet they might have to teach them still the importance of digital storytelling and technology training and education? So that's going to take some time to get our online offerings, for schools and, community organizations back online, because there's a lot more to it than just, teaching, how to, use a video camera online.
Yes, absolutely. And the importance of the fact that we're living in a whole different world today, and we'll never go back to the way we lived before. There are actually some blessings to the lessons that we are learning. We're also working with Blanca Romero and Naleo on the census, and we were dealing with the farm worker community. How we got their frontline people as well as the healthcare workers and the blue collar workers, et cetera, the farm workers. Thanks to them, we have the food and so forth, and we got to make sure that they're included in the census. So our program that we have with Gente Unida, which is a virtual education program to the kids in the shelters in Baja California, is something that is very, very important to keep the children in tune and as normal as possible, and being educated about the arts and having artists participate as teachers and musicians participate as teachers. Because these children, 6, 7, 8 years old, they realize that there's something unusual going on, and we got to show them. It reminds me of one of my favorite films of all time, which was dealing with one of the most difficult times ever in our history, but putting a positive spin. And this isn't like a film for the film festival, but it's a very well-known film, and it's the film that deals with the Holocaust. And that even in the Holocaust, there's a little boy, Josh, and I don't remember the father's name, and he's trying to make it seem like it's a game, like there is hope, that there is going to be a better day, and so forth. And I think we need to keep that with our children, not only with our children, but also with our elders and with everybody, but especially those two communities. Well, Ethan, I'm a big fan of your works. You're a dear friend, and the work that you and the Latino Film Festival team, as you mentioned, has done is unbelievable. And there's so many things to the work that you're involved with that I think a lot of people just associate you with one thing. And one of the things that we like to do with the podcast is to maybe talk about things that maybe people didn't know, like with you, being a musician, playing the violin, the guitar, and that background. Many people probably don't know that about you. So in closing, how would you define, this is something that I've asked some of the guests, what to you is love? When somebody says love, this is what love is. Like I always like to say, love is an action, not just a word. Love has no borders, etc. Those are sayings that I've always, stressed. But what to you is love? When somebody says, what is love? How would you answer that?
Interesting. For me, love is about giving to others, and it's about how you treat others. For me, that's been my life's work. It's not about what I'm kind of personally feeling at the current time. What can I give back to the community and to others, and help for the greater good? And to me, that's what I continue to strive for. Whether it's an education program or a film program, or now, like you mentioned, I've gone back to playing music. I play the mandolin now. I changed over. So again, how can I give that love via music or via art or via film? But again, it's about the greater good, about the community. What are we doing to help others and to make this world a better place?
Well, you're definitely a good example of that. Just this morning, we're working on a film that we're going to be finalizing probably within the next month or so, that we've been working on for well over a year now. And, I'll give you information on that later. Also a television series that we're doing. And I'm working with people, well-known people in the arts world, Demian Bichid and now his brother Bruno. And we were just with Josefina Lopez and so on and so forth. And one of the wonderful things about this world is that they have a wide network of contacts. So they can spread that message of love, which is really what makes the world go round. And that's the only way we're going to overcome hate, is by practicing love, not just talking about it, but really practicing it. And that's something that you've always done. So just as we end here, so how can people find out more about the many projects that you're working on? I know you have various websites and something, and we'll make sure to post those. But as far as, hey, I want to, when is the Latino Film Festival going to be? And how can I see these virtual films right now? How can people get in touch with that?
Yeah, I go to the digitalgym.org, digitalgym.org, to check out our weekly virtual movie programming. Click on cinema, you can check out the movie programmings. And then also, if you click on workshops and the education button, you can see more about our upcoming youth film programs as well. So that's probably the best way to start immediately. And then, in the course of the next month or 2 months or so, sdlatinofilm.com will have some updates on the film festival and steps there.
Well, Ethan, okay. Well, Ethan, thank you very much. You're definitely a buen hombre, one of the buenísimos. So thank you for joining us on Buen Hombre.
I've been upgraded from bad hombre to buen hombre.
And magnificent mujer like Josefina Lopez, like Sarabella, our producer. And on behalf of her, on behalf of me, Enrique Morones, thank you all very much for joining us on another edition of Buen Hombre, Magnificent Mujer, which you can listen to on or look at the website, buenhombre.org, magnificentmujer.org. We're also on all sorts of different, I don't know what you call it, Sarah, to be able to tune in and listen to these podcasts on Spotify, on Amazon, on all sorts of different networks. So thank you, Ethan. Stay safe, you and your lovely family. And we will continue to move forward, because love is an action, not just a word. Muchas gracias. Y sí se puede. Be safe, everybody. Gracias.
Thank you.